I guess I should have known when I saw that Best Buy commercial come on the week before Halloween that Christmas was coming early this year. Though I guess it never really comes early. Christmas always comes just at the right time. But there is something about the way that the lunar and the Gregorian calendars align this year that does mean that we start Advent today, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, as we're still just beginning to come out of that tryptophan-induced Thanksgiving coma of ours. And what it means is that it's about to start, the gun is about to go off right about now. 3 weeks, 3 days, until you're expected to be at the side of the manger. 3 weeks, 3 days to make that journey. That journey along with the wise men and the shepherds to arrive at the side of the manger to hopefully not just witness, but actually experience the birth or the rebirth of hope into this world. A hope that has the power to transform our lives and to transform this entire planet. I want to begin with a scripture passage from the book of Galatians, chapter 4. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, in order to redeem those who are under the law, so that we might... there it is. We might receive adoption as children. Thank you. That's okay. And because you are children, God has sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a child, and if a child, then also an heir through God. And so, we have little precious spare time to waste. If we're going to engineer for ourselves, if we're going to manufacture this Christmas spirit that we're all desperately in need of before those 3 weeks and 3 days is gone, we need one of those rushes like Black Friday through those doors to try to get ourselves ready, to make the magic happen. And I always love hearing what it is that does it for you. And what is it that finally kicks in that Christmas sense of cheer for you? Is it a certain CD that you listen to or a carol that you need to sing? Does it happen when you finally get the tree up and decorated or put the lights on outside your house? Is it a food that you need to eat or something you need to drink or a smell you need to smell? I'd love to take a few minutes. Any of you, what is it that finally kicks in that Christmas spirit for you all? Anybody? Cynthia. The what? Oh, Mary, did you know? Yes, that is a gorgeous one. How about you? Yes. Ah, yes, we're kind of the same way. Yeah, Mike. Ah, very good. The Muzak in the elevators as you're going through the department stores. Oh, cutting down a Christmas tree. Oh, have I got a video clip for you in just about 2 minutes. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, Miracle on 34th Street. You know, this season, Advent has begun. Ready or not, it is upon us. And it is faster than normal, and we have less time than normal to get ourselves prepared. But so this season, what we're going to be doing is we're starting a new series that we're entitling Achieving a Christmas State of Mind, to try to give you some pointers and some help to get yourself there. And today, we're going to talk about expectations. The expectations that we bring to bear on this moment and this season. And what I want to posit is that there is this strange paradox going on during the Christmas season for us. On the one hand, we end up expecting way, way too much out of this season. And yet, on the other hand, at the very same time, we expect way, way too little. That there is this strange duality going on inside of our psyches every time we come into the season. On the one hand, we expect way, way too much. And yet on the other hand, we expect way, way too little. Number one, we expect way, way too much. In America, it's almost a compulsion, a sort of obsessive-compulsive paranoia of ours to try to create these giant Christmas productions that cater to all five senses. We want it to smell right and sound right and look right. We want sights and sounds and smells and tinsel and trees and presents and eggnogs and parties and shopping. And we go at it with such a manic sense of trying to, like we're trying to engineer our very own Christmas spirit. Like we're trying to create for ourselves a certain feeling or attitude that will open the door to allow Christmas to happen. I think probably the iconic movie that sort of points out this American manic obsession with creating the perfect Christmas is Chevy Chase's Christmas Vacation. I don't know if you have seen this movie, but in it, Chevy Chase plays a man named Clark Griswold, the sort of quintessential, overly controlling American dad and husband who is going to create the best Christmas for himself or his family, even if it kills him. And being one of those vacation movies, it almost does. He falls off the ladder when he's putting up the lights. He cremates their turkey. He blows up their neighborhood when he tries to put 125,000 lights on the Christmas tree. Well, let me just show you this scene from the very beginning of the movie.
Dad, didn't they invent Christmas tree lots so people wouldn't have to drive all the way out to nowhere and waste a whole Saturday?
They invented them, Russ, because people forgot how to have a fun, old-fashioned family Christmas and are satisfied with scrawny, dead, overpriced trees that have no special meaning.
My toes are numb.
You see, kids, this is what our forefathers did.
I can't feel my leg.
They walked out into the woods, they picked out that special tree, and they cut it down with their bare hands.
Mom, I can't feel my hips.
Clark.
Yes, honey?
Audrey's frozen from the waist down.
Oh, that's all part of the experience, honey. There it is.
The Griswold family Christmas tree.
Isn't it a little big?
It's not big, it's just full.
Dad, that thing wouldn't fit in our yard.
Not going in our yard, Russ. It's going in our living room.
Look at it.
It really is beautiful, Clark.
Something else, huh, Russ?
Yeah, Dad.
Isn't it a beaut, Audrey?
She'll see it later, honey. Her eyes are frozen.
Most enduring traditions of the season are best enjoyed in the warm embrace of kith and kin. This tree is a symbol of the spirit of the Griswold family Christmas.
Dad, did you bring a saw?
And it all goes downhill from there. Sort of like their motto is that if we can just get all of the traditions and the rituals perfectly right, then we will discover the meaning of Christmas, and we will have the best Christmas ever. And so they get trapped up in all the wrappings and wrapped up in all the trappings, trying to engineer themselves one of those kinds of Christmases like the ones we used to know. You know, it was a little bit of a surprising coincidence, I guess, and a little bit heartbreaking. When 2 days ago, as I was getting ready for this sermon, and as I was going through this movie to try to pull this video clip, we actually got a text from our cousin Rachel 2 days ago. I want you to see what she wrote to Yvette. I am going all Griswold. on our front yard. I didn't realize that it had become sort of a term that could be used, all Griswold. And the sad thing, the thing that's kind of heartbreaking, if you all remember, Rachel is our cousin who was here for a short time, became a member of our church. She was here with her husband Terrell and their child. And Terrell was killed by drug smugglers off the coast of Los Angeles. He was a Coast Guard officer. And that was exactly 1 year ago tomorrow. And so, of course, their first Christmas was just a hellish nightmare. But now, Rachel is back in South Carolina near her parents. She's just bought a house outside of Charleston, and she has moved into this house with her 2 little boys, and she's trying her hardest. What this text was telling us is she's trying her hardest to create as beautiful a Christmas as she can for her and her children. This first kind of Christmas that they're with it since Terrell has died. You know, there is a strange and unfair duality that comes out at this time of year for so many people. It's so easy for us to buy into this media hype that Christmas time, that this season is supposed to be about perfect families and perfect family memories, getting together for perfect Hallmark-like occasions. Like everything is supposed to be peaceful and calm and perfect. When the reality is, for many, things are far from perfect. For many, this season is just a harsh spotlight on the simple truth that not everything is right in our world or in our lives. And so, people who feel under the pressure to try to pretend that everything is right, they end up feeling like this season isn't for me. This is not something that is intended for me with all of my brokenness and all of my heartbreak and loss and disappointment. It's like we completely forget what that first Christmas was like for Mary and Joseph. This scared, abandoned, confused couple, lonely and terrified. That Jesus didn't come in to put a cherry on top of a perfect world, but that he came to bring courage and peace and calm and love and hope into all of the darkest corners and the bitter betrayals and the disappointments of our life. On the one hand, we expect way too much out of Christmas. And yet on the other hand, we expect far too little. Because I think that what all of this engineering, what all of this trying to create our own sense of Christmas spirit and Christmas cheer, all of the engineering and manufacturing that we do to try to create that perfect experience is our way of telling God that we don't trust that God is capable of creating it for us. That this isn't about our timing and our agenda and our plans. It never was. I mean, think about Mary and Joseph. When that first Christmas came around, it had nothing to do with their agenda or their plans or in any way their timing. And yet once again, what Galatians 4 says, when the time had fully come, God sent God's Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem or rescue those born under the law, that we might receive the full rights of sons and daughters. Do you see? This is not about our timing. This is about God's timing. Centuries before, Micah had said this, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel." Now, there was a little problem when the time came. This woman that the Son of God was growing inside of was not in Bethlehem. He was in, do you remember where? Nazareth. And so, Mary and Joseph needed to figure out a way to make that work, right? No. God was engineering this from the very beginning. From the very beginning, this was about God putting together God's plans throughout since the beginning of time to make God's plan come together. And so, when the time was right, God created this little fiscal cliff for the Roman Empire of their own. And I'm sure in the Senate there, they were debating whether it was a problem of too much spending or not enough income. But either way, they decided that they needed to raise taxes. And so along with the taxes came a census. And so all of a sudden, God moved Mary and Joseph from Nazareth to Bethlehem and made it coincide with the exact time, after 9 months of a pregnancy, the exact time that she would be given birth, and a prophecy was fulfilled. When the right time, the ripe time had come. This is about God's timing, not ours. And then to get this message out, this message that was part of the covenant that God made with Abraham, that you will be a light to all nations. In order for that to happen, there needed to be some kind of common language. And yet back in those days, that area was just a patchwork of crazy different cultures and languages and tongues, and nobody could understand each other until God put in place Alexander the Great, who conquered the entire known world back then and created this Roman Empire, and was so arrogant that he wouldn't allow people to speak in their own tongues, but decreed that all of the business that took place in the Roman Empire had to be done in Alexander the Great's native tongue of Greek. So suddenly there was a common language. But a common language wasn't enough. You needed, just like Jesus had said, I want you to go out to all nations, discipling people, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. But to get out to the whole world, you needed something. I don't know if you remember from History 101 what Rome was so famous for. Do you remember? Their roads. So suddenly, when the time was right, in God's timing, there was suddenly this network, this web of roads that went around the entire Roman Empire out to every corner of the known world at that time. But it wasn't enough just to have roads, because if you were going to get killed when you went on them, it didn't work. You needed safety. You needed security. And so do you remember the other thing that the Roman Empire was famous for? Their Pax Romana. This unprecedented season of peace and stability and security that made it safe to travel on these roads to the ends of the kingdom. This has never been about our timing and our plans and our agendas and us creating our own Christmas spirit. This has been God's timing since the beginning of time to bring this Savior into the world. This is not about our expectations, but God's. In fact, Israel, they got caught up in their own Clark Griswold moment. When the child came, they weren't ready for him because they had these preconceived expectations of how they wanted their first Christmas to go. They had this picture in their mind of who their Messiah was supposed to look like. For years, they had been building this elaborate plan that when their Messiah came, when they were going to be ready for their Christmas, it was going to be a child who was going to be a father like Abraham, a deliverer like Moses, a king like David, that he was going to have the wisdom of Solomon and the biceps of Samson all rolled up into one. And yet when this child came, it shattered all of their preconceived notions, all of their expectations of what they expected Christmas to look like. And so what did they do? They crucified him. Why? Because he didn't meet the plans and agendas that they had in their own minds. Christmas is not so much about engineering an experience as it is about surrendering to a relationship. That's the reason that we're here. That's the reason for all of this, from the beautiful anthems to the spectacular oratorios, the trees, the candles, the presents, the eggnog, all of it. All of it is meant to point us to a relationship, to remind us to open our hearts and to open our souls, to allow God to draw near, to not forget to pick up that child out of the manger and hold it close to our breasts so that that child can become a deeper and more significant part of our life. There's nothing wrong with all of the rituals and all of the traditions. I love Frosty. I love Rudolph. I even love that Jingle Bell song with the dogs barking. You know what I'm talking about? I love all of it, but we must never forget that each one of these symbols is meant to point us to something deeper. Not to an experience, but to that relationship. That is the heart of the matter, and it is there that we are going to find the joy. It's there that we're going to find that Christmas spirit. It's there that we're going to find the meaning of Christmas, and then the joy will not be able to be suppressed. There's a story about a small church that had planted itself in the middle of a suburban community not too far from here. And as it grew, it became more dynamic and more people started to come, and before long it started to create a problem for the community that it was in the middle of, because it was loud and rambunctious, and they stayed up late at night making noise, and there were traffic problems all over the place. And so eventually the neighbors decided to start a petition to try to create some curfews and some caps on how loud they could be, and some parking regulations, things like that. And they sent around this petition to all the neighbors, and they saved this one house for last. It was the house that was directly across the street from the church, and in it they knew lived a little old Jewish man. And so they knew that this guy was going to want to be the top of the petition signing off, and so they saved a place for him right at the top of the petition. And they came to his door, and they knocked on the door, and they explained their cause. And the little old man said, "I am not going to sign your petition." And they said, "Well, goodness, why not? You're Jewish. You don't believe in Jesus." And the man said, "That's right. I am and I don't. But I'll tell you what, right now, if I actually believed that the Messiah had come back, I would be a whole lot noisier than they are." We don't have a lot of time.